Good evening, everyone. Welcome. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Kelsey Jones, and we're going to change things a little bit differently tonight. We're actually going to give a few awards out. So if you can just bear with us. Typically, in the past, we've always given 2 awards every year. Typically, that's been at a special event or some type of meeting, and we decided to change things around a little bit this year and do it Friday night at the museum. So, our first recipient, very, very involved with the Daughters of the American Revolution for many, many years. She's been very, very involved with the America 250 Committee for Bradford County. And one of her visions has been to do something with revolutionary soldiers. And part of that vision is to create a plaque. I think we're up to about 320 soldiers in the county. So if you can envision, this is going to be a really large plaque. It's probably going to be in the courthouse. I don't think we've completely decided that yet, but the last I knew, it's going to be in the courthouse. So, Cindy's been all over the county. She's been documenting and tramping here and there through cornfields and up and down mountainsides. And then recently I heard she asked her husband to go with her because she was a little concerned about this one site. And the last I knew, it was the first cemetery, the only cemetery, and the last cemetery he's visited. In other words, different interest in that household. Cindy Holdridge, can you come up here, please? To get Cindy here, she thought she was doing a speech, so I hope she didn't set up all day writing something. Congratulations.
I appreciate that.
The Bradford County Historical Society presents the 2025 Leo E. Wilt Historian of the Year Award to Cindy Holdridge, with profound appreciation for her extraordinary dedication to preserving Bradford County's Revolutionary War history as part of the nation's America 250 commemoration. Through more than 1,000 hours of meticulous research, she has compiled and verified the records of Revolutionary soldiers buried in Bradford County, creating 9 volumes of information. Cindy's work, organized with precision and care, stands as an impeccable resource for the Bradford County Historical Society, ensuring that future researchers, DAR and SAR applicants, and history enthusiasts will benefit from her efforts for generations to come. So it is my honor and privilege to present this award to Cindy. Congratulations. I hope you didn't sit up all day doing the speech.
Pardon?
I hope you didn't sit up all day doing the speech.
No, I didn't.
Do you want to say anything briefly?
If I can be brief.
Yeah, we got 2 other awards, so got to be
Yeah.
brief.
Well, I started years ago when I inherited care of a cemetery. I had no history of these people, except that I knew I had 4 generations there. And I started, and then COVID came, and I went down the rabbit hole of ancestry. And because I became very active in DAR, well, then there was cemeteries to fix down at the Tunkhannock chapter. I did a lot of research, and it was only natural for me to say Bradford County needs a plaque in their courthouse because Susquehanna County and Wyoming County have those plaques from the DAR in the early 1920s. So congratulations to Bradford County for accepting my idea and helping me to make it happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. Oh, stick around, we're going to do photographs afterwards.
Okay.
So don't go anywhere. Our next recipient, she and I go back very far. We used to be on the Tioga Point Museum Board together. She's involved in a lot of projects. She did a holiday home tour in the Valley several years ago. And a lot of work goes into that because you've got to find people who want to let people into their house. And I remember one instance where It was a young couple, and busy probably, family, young kids, and the dirty dishes were still in the sink. And let me tell you, our recipient had concerns about that. She's also doing a lot of work on a cemetery. If anybody's in the valley, the last I knew, she needs help, maintenance and restoration. She's also been involved in the wine festival that the Spalding Library and the Tioga Point Museum do each year, which is still a huge success. But what we are honoring her for tonight is her many, many hours of volunteerism here and her involvement with the naturalization records. A lot of immigrants came to this county. My own immigrant ancestors were miners on Barkley Mountain. We had Italians in the valley and various places in the county. So she's spent many, many hours, excuse me, on that project. So Elaine Pearson, can you come up here? Congratulations.
Thank you.
The Bradford County Historical Society presents the 2025 Leo E. Wilt Historian of the Year Award to Elaine Pearson. With gratitude and admiration for a lifetime dedicated to history, education, and community. For 33 years, Elaine inspired generations of students as a history teacher in the Athens Area School District. As a volunteer at the Bradford County Historical Society and other museums, Elaine has given generously of her time, knowledge, and talents, always with patience and remarkable attention to detail. Elaine's passion for history, enriched by her travels around the world, help preserve and illuminate the past for future generations. Again, my honor and privilege to present this award to Elaine Pearson. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelsey. This is a spot.
Anything you want to say briefly?
I'll just say something. Kelsey makes me sound much better than I am, but I appreciate this award, and I hope to continue doing as much as I can anywhere. So thanks again.
Take off again. Here, take this. Earlier, I said 2 awards every year. We're doing 3 awards this year. Often we hear about people in the background who are kind of doing everything and lots of different things, and sometimes it's a spouse or whatever. In this particular instance, it's the parents of our executive director, Matt Carl. And this award is probably long overdue. They've done so much for the Bradford County Historical Society over the years. Mowing lawns, for example. We have a little patch of grass out there. We have a little patch of grass out here. We've got some grass out front, and we got grass over here on a hillside. And they've done that every year at no cost to us. Recently, we acquired some property in Monroe, Pennsylvania. They've been mowing there, trimming hedges, lawn work, raking, etc. So, and then we had a sign replaced out here on Pine Street. The old sign kind of started to fall apart. Pressured wood doesn't last forever, especially when it's involved with dirt. And the new sign got erected. Matt and I are out there looking, and I said, Matt, what are we going to do with this big pile of stones? And he goes, well, my father planted grass seed. I said, he did what? I think I said something to the effect, I don't think grass is going to grow in that pile of rocks. Well, a couple weeks later, I was out there, and here is this beautiful, lush, thick, green grass. So if anybody needs grass seed advice, Tom Carl's your man. Tom and Ann, can you come up here? Are you surprised?
Yeah.
The 2025 Clement F. Heverly Outstanding Service Award presented by the Bradford County Historical Society to Thomas and Annette Carl. In recognition of 18 years of dedicated service to the Bradford County Historical Society, through countless hours of volunteer work, mowing the grounds, trimming and removing trees, painting and repairing the facility, cleaning, assisting with preservation projects, and much more. They have given freely of their time and energy. Their faithful participation in programs and events has enriched the life of the society, while their generosity and devotion have helped preserve its home for future generations. Given with deep appreciation for your enduring commitment, hard work, and unwavering support. Congratulations. Again, it's my honor and privilege to present this award to Tom and Ann Carl. Thank you.
Thank you for this award. We had no idea that this was going to happen, and I'll say thank you and keep him under control. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your attention. Thank you for coming, and I'm turning it over to Matt Carl now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Back to your regularly scheduled program. This evening is our last program for our 18th season of Friday Night at the Museum. And so we're looking forward to tonight's program. But just a few announcements. First of all, our research library is open every week, Wednesday through Friday, 10 to 4, and the first Saturday of the month, 10 to 2. Our museum is closed for the season, but we can schedule tours for you as well. If you're not a member yet, there's a membership form out on the counter out there. You get our magazine 4 times a year. This is the one that just came out here and was packed full of information. I can tell you that because I painstakingly slaved over it for quite a long time. But every few months there, we send a new one of those out, and we look forward to that. So this evening's program is about Native American life in Bradford County, and Duane Saxton is our speaker this evening. I've heard good things about Duane's presentation, so we look forward to him. So we'll turn it over to him right now.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be in front of you tonight and talk a little bit about the Native American that lived in our valleys here in Pennsylvania and in New York. I ran across a book that was dated in 1891, and this sort of sets the stage for tonight's presentation. Test. Okay. So, so the author writes, we set now? Yep. Okay. So the author writes in the second chapter of the book that Columbus, not realizing that he had discovered the New World, called the people he found Indians, thus transplanting the name of the people of ancient origin in the East. The original inhabitants, they therefore, to be strictly identified, must be called American Indians. The picture of Columbus and his men meeting the natives on their ships, first touching our South Atlantic coast, is purely fanciful. These people, not as painted, were dirty, even filthy, and very ignorant savages. They had no idea of the geography. Further than their eyes could see, the universe simply reached beyond the next range of the mountains. If I do nothing else tonight, I hope I can dispel some of these thoughts. What is the correct terminology for the people who lived here? We called them Native. We called them American Indian. We called them Indian. We called them Indigenous. We called them Natives. We called them Savages. So let's take a walk back in history and learn a little bit about the people who lived in this area that we call home. Oh, boy. Aha. Worked before? Okay. Technical difficulty. There it is. Nope, okay. So tonight, I want us to think about the 1700s. So we're going to start with the 1700s. We're not going to go prior to that. The 1700s were a time of major change to the Native American, also the settlers that lived in this area. The original inhabitants of what is Steuben, Chemung, Tioga, counties in New York included the Haudenosaunee, the Lenape, which are Delaware. In northern Pennsylvania, in the county of Bradford, it was inhabited by Susquehannocks and the Tehoties. Among the banks of most streams, creeks, you'll find the Native American villages. In the 1700s, there was a lot of trading going on, and the village of what is now Athens was a village of Tioga. Tioga was the gateway into the Iroquois Confederacy. You had to go through the gateway of Tioga to gain access into the Iroquois nation. At this time in the 1700s, the Iroquois had pretty much taken over and was helping and guarding the people who lived in Bradford County. So let's take it back some time and talk about that. Oh, I'm really doing well here. Okay, we're going to fly without it. So, good evening. My name is Micah Teditica. Micah Teditica is my Indian name, and roughly translated, it is running raccoon or raccoon, one who runs. Now, that Native American name would not have been given to me by my birth parents. That honor was given to the clan mother. The clan mother did not name the children upon their birth. She waited for one of the festivals. There was the Green Harvest Corn Festival in the fall, and there was the Winter Festival in about February. So I was born in March, so I did not have a name all the way through until the Green Harvest Corn Festival in the fall. At that time, she bestowed me with the name Running Raccoon. I would have kept that name until a time of my life that I would have gained a nickname like we do today, or if I was promoted to a sachem or a chief, I would have been given another name. Upon my death, I would have, all of those names would have go back into the clan mother's basket, and she would use them again. The Native American people at that time, it was a matriarchal society. By a show of hands, how many of you think that mom is the boss of your family? At least in my family, my wife is the boss. And that was the way it was with the Native American people. The clan mother made decisions for the entire tribe. You did not plant your crops, you did not gain your harvest until the clan mother felt it was appropriate. The warriors and the braves of the tribe did not go out on hunting or fishing trips until it was time for the the clan mother to agree and make that decision. So the structure that the Native American had in their families was based on clans. So the clans, there were 9 clans. There were 3 from the air, 3 from the water, and 3 from the ground. And the way the clan structure works is I'm a bear clan. And when it's time for me to have a bride, I have to go outside of the bear clan. So I married a turtle clan girl. Now, our children are going to be what? Bear or turtle? Turtle, very good. So if we had a son, he would be a turtle. And then when he would become of age and get married, he would go outside the turtle clan. So that keeps all of the DNA and all of that stuff in order. Now, what I'm wearing today is typically what you would find in the fall, winter of a Native American village. The women of the tribe dressed fairly plain. They would wear either a deerskin or a muslin dress, some leggings, and some moccasins. No face paint, typically braid their hair. Now the men, that's a little bit different story. The men enjoyed, like the birds that we see, the men are more colorful, you could say. So the way I am dressed today has nothing to do with whether I am a Mohawk or a Seneca or Cayuga. It is just what I felt looked good today. The face paint is mud from the clay. It's basically a sunblock. Darkens the skin a little bit. The red is a raspberry paste, and charcoal is the black. Again, it is just what I felt looked good today. We had tattoos. We had an abundance of jewelry. We did not shave our heads or our beards. We don't have heavy beards, but what we do to remove the hair, take clamshells, pinch the hair, and pull it out. So it's sort of a permanent shave. And we did the same with our heads, sometimes leaving a scalp lock. And the scalp lock is just a patch of hair that we would decorate with furs or feathers, braids. Many times we would take turkey feathers and make if you will, a bonnet and have the turkey feathers. Excuse me. So the Iroquois people were settled in upstate New York. And as legend tells it, there was a Huron chief that came down from Canada, met up with Hiawatha, and they came into the Western nation, which was the Seneca nation. And they talked to the Seneca people about getting together with the other tribes that were located in New York. And if you would work with the other people and live in concert, if you had a drought this year and your neighbors didn't, they could help you with food and also protection. So the Senecas sort of agreed to this, and they went to the next nation and the following nation. Well, they got to the middle of the state where Syracuse is now, and they came to the Onondaga Nation. The Onondaga Nation was, if you will, controlled by a warring chief. Now that chief did not agree that he needed any help. And Hiawatha reached into the quiver of one of the braves and pulled out one arrow. And he said, "You are the Onondaga people." And he broke the arrow. He says, "You can be broken." Then he reached in and got 5 arrows. At that time, there were 5 tribes in New York State. And he says, "You can't be broken." Well, that convinced the chief that he needed to marry up with the other tribes. So he ordered his braves to go out and uproot a large white pine tree. They uprooted the tree. He took some of the ceremonial weapons that they had, buried it in the ground, and put the tree back up. That is called the Tree of Peace. And the Tree of Peace is where the council fire is. So Hiawatha and the Huron chief continued to the other tribes, and they formed the Iroquois Confederacy. Now, the Iroquois, or Iroquois, is not a term that is liking to the Native Americans that lived in New York. It was given to them by the Delaware soldier said, after losing a battle, he says, "You people, you are Iroquois, Iroquois," which is snakes in the grass. So, as you can understand, the Iroquois people do not like to be called Iroquois, but it is something that over time has stuck, and it was called the Iroquois Confederacy. We would rather be called the Haudenosaunee, or the Haudenosaunee, and that is the people of the Longhouse. Much of our symbolism throughout our culture is based on the Longhouse. And I'll talk a little bit about what a longhouse is in a few minutes. So with our Tree of Peace and the tribes living together, if we look at the map of New York State, it's going to be easy for you people in the front and very hard for you people in the back. But if you think of New York State and you start in the eastern part of New York State, that would be the Mohawk people. They are the big brothers of the Eastern Gate. Then you have the Oneida, and then you have the Onondaga, which is the Tree of Peace. Then you have the Cayuga, and then you have the Seneca. Seneca is the other big brother, and he is in charge. They are in charge of the Western Gate. The Tuscaroras came into play in the 1700s. They came up from the south. They came up from South Carolina up in because of some conflicts that they had, and they settled up into this area. And so they made the Six Nations, if you will, and that was the Tuscarora people, and so it was the Six Nations of the Confederacy. So the flag in the front is the Haudenosaunee flag. And if we stand up, we can't see it. I do have a great slide for this. So if you look at, this is the Five Nations, and you start out with the Seneca and the Mohawk, the Cayuga and the Oneida, and then in the center is the Tree of Peace where the council fire is. One other thing that's very noteworthy is the bar that is in between each one of these means that people are together. We're living in the longhouse, if you will. And in a longhouse, you only have two doors, one at each end. A longhouse is as long as this room. So your first family will live in the first section, the next family will live in the second section, and so on. So if you live in the middle, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you can imagine the disturbance you make getting out the other door. But what this symbolizes is they have an open door. If you come to my village, we welcome you into my village, and we'll feed you, you can stay with us, but it's basically an open door house. So, back to what I'm wearing. Everything that I'm wearing pretty much is a trade item. At this time, there's a lot of trading going on. Now, you're going to ask me, well, there was no currency. What are you trading? We're trading furs. The fur trade at this time in the 1700s was huge. 35,000 furs were traded a single day back to Europe. I guess they liked mink coats and beaver coats, but the beaver was the standard. So if you will, it was the currency of the time. A beaver pelt was worth so much. Today's dollars, it's about $95. So you can imagine the wealth that was gained. So this was the trading item. If I had a beaver pelt or a coyote, I could trade for a woolen shirt like this. My hawk would have been something that I traded. We didn't know how to make metal. We didn't have woolen mills. They had those in Europe. Europe didn't have the beaver, the coyote, and the other animals that we would skin and trade for them. Metal buckets like I have here on display would have been another item. The clay pots that we made didn't hold up, but using the metalware, it was something that we could really use. So one of the problems that they had was that all of the tribes spoke Iroquoian, but they spoke a different dialect. So you can imagine if the 5 nations got together for council and each of the tribes sent 3 representatives, they got 3 or 4 representatives, they got back to the council, and they're going to discuss one problem a day. But the Senecas speak a different dialect than the Mohawk. They speak the same language, but a little bit different dialect. So you really have to listen when the presenter is presenting their case. So if we're talking about one subject, one concerning thing that the Oneidas had today, so the Oneida representative is going to talk first, and everyone else is going to listen. But what happens even in our government today is somebody is more important and is going to talk over the other person. So they came up with the talking stick. Now the talking stick very simply means if you're holding the talking stick, you're able to talk. Now the great creator, when he created us, made us with how many ears? 2. And how many mouths? So we should probably listen more than we talk. So if I'm holding the talking stick, then you are going to empathically listen to what I have to say. Because I'm speaking from the heart. I'm speaking truth to you. So you're going to listen. Because very soon, I'm going to hand you the talking stick, and it's going to be your turn to talk. And you've got to have your thoughts in. Now, when I do this presentation to middle schoolers, I say, now this isn't math class. I'm holding the stick, you're listening. You're not figuring out what you're going to say. You listen to what I have to say, you understand what I'm going to have to say, because very soon you're going to have it. Now, if we've discussed this poor Oneida guy stood up there and he's talking for a long time about what his tribe needs and how they want something from the rest of the council. So they get done, it's the end of the day, now they're going to vote on this one thing today. That's all they're going to vote on. Now, in our government, if we have 15 people, how many have to say yes for that to be passed? The majority, right? Not so in the Iroquois culture. Iroquois culture, it has to be unanimous. So now you can think about how important it is for you when you have the stick to get your point across. Because at the end of the day, after a long day of discussion, you're going to vote on that one thing. And if just one person disagrees, it doesn't get passed. But let's just think about today in our government. So we have 15 people, and only 10 of them say yes. What happens to the other 5? How do they walk away? Are they happy with the decision? But if you did it by the culture of the Iroquois, all 15 of you agree. You're walking away. Let's work on something else tomorrow. So, the talking stick. So this is wampum. And wampum was something that the native people valued. I had the opportunity to go to Connecticut a few years ago and sit down with a person that was making wampum. Now, each one of these beads is chipped out of a shell like this, purple or white. They take the fragment that they've chipped out and they start polishing it to a round cylinder. Then they drill a hole in it, not with any metal tools, but with like porcupine quills or something of the equivalent to drill the hole through. Now this gentleman had a basket on the side similar to this basket, and it was filled with chips. And I said, "What's that all about?" And he said, "Well, those are the broken pieces. And I worked so hard on them, I don't really want to throw them away. So I just save them." And I said, "Well, okay, how long does it take you to make one bead?" He said, "Typically it takes me 4 to 5 days to make one bead." So you can imagine how long it would take to make something like this. I do know that this took me, during COVID, this was my project, I bought all the beads, but it took me a month and a half to weave it together. So it is something that takes a very long time. So if I was to come, it's kind of like the badge of honor. So if I was to come to your tribe, and I am holding, yes, your tribe, and I am holding the wampum in my left hand, are you going to listen to me and read me? Because this is sent by my tribe, so very valuable. You can listen to me, right? Now, if I come to your tribe, and I have it in my right hand, would you believe me? Why? It's in my right hand. And the left hand is closest to my heart. I speak the truth. So you've got something of value, extreme value that my tribe gave me, and I'm talking truth. But remember the dialect thing? We didn't always understand completely what they had. And to expand that even further, the Iroquois all spoke Iroquoian. But you had the Algonquin people down here in Pennsylvania, you had the Delaware people, they did not speak many times Iroquoian. So if you met me in the woods, here I am, here you are, and we need to communicate. We don't speak the same language. Well, the Native American throughout the United States had what they call hand talk. And hand talk isn't sign language. It is a very simplistic way of asking a question and you giving an answer. The face was very plain. It was all gestures with your upper body. This gesture says, "I'm hungry." It's cutting me in half. And then, so it's basic communication. There's only a few tribes left in the United States that actually converse with hand talk when they have to. But many of the American Sign Language did come from hand talk, but if you know American Sign Language, you cannot talk in hand talk. So back to my wampum. This wampum is a copy of a treaty that was agreed upon between the Dutch and the Native American. And what it signifies, this was in the 1600s, I believe, that they signed the treaty, is this is the river of life. The blue is the Native American in their dugout canoes and their customs and their traditions, and they're flowing down the river of life. This is the Dutch flowing down in their big boats with their big sails and their customs and their traditions, and they're flowing down the river of life. Basically, you stay in your path, We stay in our path. We don't try to influence you with our customs. Don't influence us with your customs. And that treaty is still in effect today. So the treaty was written, and there was a wampum that was made to signify that. So far, I'm remembering most everything. So this is deer skin. Now, when we would trade furs, most of the time we would trade the fur with the fur on it. But for our clothing, we would skin the deer, and then we'd take the hair off, and then we would what we call tan it. But they didn't tan it the way we tan it today. They did a process called brain tanning. The brain tanning, the deer has chemicals in their brain that breaks down the fibers in the skin. So the process, you take the skin with the fur on it, and you soak it in the brain matter and water for several days. Then you take it out and you scrape all of the fur off from it, and then stretch and dry the hide, and it comes out pliable. And that's the way they would have processed their furs. Anybody like maple syrup? Okay, a few of you. You know how the Native American realized that it was sweet water? They watched the squirrels. There would be a cut in a maple tree. The squirrel would be licking the water that comes out. So over time, they figured out if we condense this, it's good tasting. So they would, like we do today, they would tap the tree, and they would take it into baskets similar to this. They would take it over, and then they would have if you will, a dugout, large log that was all dug out next to the fire. They would pour the sweet water into the basin, and they would take the hot rocks and throw them into the sap, and then that would evaporate out. So they would have, if you will, a crude syrup. They would mix the syrup with dried berries and nuts, and that would be their trail mix, if you will. Let's see, what am I forgetting? Well, let's go right into the Revolutionary War. So, oh boy. What's that?
Mac could fix your tech. Mac could fix you and get you moving.
You think?
Yes.
Where's Matt? Oh, if you could, this would be good. Oh, am I working now? I wish you stood up a lot earlier. Okay, we talked about all of that stuff. Hey, I did pretty good. What do you know? So for you people in the back, that's what the Haudenosaunee flag looks like. And so we have the gates on each side. There was a talking stick. Okay. I'm going to pick on you again. I'm going to tell you a story about Matt. You know the man, okay? He's a gentleman who just helped me make this thing work. It's a story that nobody in this room knows. A short story. I'm going to tell you that story. And you're going to tell it the way you want to. And it's going to go all the way around the room to Mr. Jones in the back. Now, is the story that I tell you the same story that he's going to tell me back? Listen, I really spent a lot of time. And then, so you think it's going to be okay, if I wrote that story down and gave you that piece of paper with that story, and you pass it to all the people here, Well, now you know why I give these presentations. The Native American did not have a written language. Everything was oral. So my great-great-great-grandfather would have told his son something very important about our culture, and he would have passed it to his son and then down to me. It's probably not going to be the same when it gets to me. So that's the importance. 7 years, or quite a few years ago, I had a history teacher call me and say, could you give a presentation to my 7th graders? And I said, yeah, I'd be glad to. But I said, I'm worried about one thing. And he said, what's that? And I said, well, I don't want to say something that is counter to what you're teaching in your textbook. So could you give me a copy of your textbook, and then I'll make sure that I don't say anything that's not appropriate. He said, well, that's a pretty easy job because there's 2 paragraphs about the Iroquois Confederacy. 2 paragraphs. So I enjoy going to the 7th grade and the 4th grade and the 11th grade and trying to tell them a little bit about the culture that we've totally forgot about. There's the hand talk. Okay, so we did have symbols, and this is a story that I wrote with my mentor, Aliaka, who is Bark Eater. And so we made this story up to show the symbols that they typically used. So if we start at 12 o'clock, just like any circle, we're going to go clockwise, and we're going to start up here with the clan mother talking to her braves. They want to go on a hunting and fishing trip. So we go clockwise. And the very first symbol tells us what time of the year it is. It's in the spring of the year. These are the little sprouts coming out of the ground. We climbed over mountains. We crossed streams. After 2 days of bright sun, we came to a lake, and we caught fish. We caught many, many fish. We are very happy, and on the next day, late afternoon, we see a bear. After 2 days of heavy rain, it clears. We cross over those rivers, we cross over the mountains, and we see a bald eagle. And after 2 nights of heavy rain, we're back to the village, and we have a festival of the playing of drums and dancing. So I do want to talk a little bit about this guy right here, the bald eagle. Up in Onondaga Lake, that was a polluted lake until just recently. Nothing lived in that lake. They cleaned it up, the city and the surrounding people set themselves on a mission to clean this lake. And you had the Onondaga Reservation not too far from there. This year, the eagle came back. And they are enjoying the fish and so on. But we can change things. So that is the pictograph, and the pictograph, if you go up in Watkins Glen and go on one of the boats that takes you up into the lake and on their tour, they will show you pictographs on the eastern side, which they feel was there at the time of the Revolution. We talked about the wampum. 3 sisters. They were farmers. They were excellent farmers. The reports of the military that came through reported corn ears as long as 15 inches, an abundance of corn, beans, and squash. Now, they did not grow the corn like we do today, big rows and big fields of corn. They grew them together. And there's many, many stories about the 3 sisters. And real briefly, the corn needs protection. They need protection around the stalks. And the bean sister is very happy to help by growing up the stalk and protecting it. What they didn't know was the bean puts nitrogen back in the soil, which is what the corn needs. Then you have the squash the cucumbers and pumpkins out on the outside, they're the broad-leafed plants. They have little prickers on them, and with the broad leaves, they keep the moisture in the ground. Whoops. So, I talked to my friend Barkeeter, I've mentioned him before, and I said, I want to grow a Three Sisters garden in my back lawn. Wife wasn't real happy about it, but we did it anyway. So, we started out with a 12-foot circle, and Barkeeter said, what you need to do is plant a few seeds of corn in about a foot diameter in the center of your circle, and wait 7 to 10 days. And then, after that time, plant the beans. These are the climbing beans, about 1.5 feet out from the circle of the corn. And then wait 7 to 10 days, and then plant the squash or pumpkins or other viney plants out from that. But wait 7 to 10 days. Now, because I know more than Barkeeter, and it was late in the season, it was coming on Memorial Day, I planted them all at the same time. So about 3 weeks to a month, my corn was up about this high. My beans had already climbed all the way over my corn, and the squash and the pumpkins were just going crazy. Needless to say, I would have starved that year. But in 2023, I paid attention to Barkeeter, and this is about a month in. As you can see, the corn's about 10, 12 inches tall. The beans are doing well, and then on the outer circle is the squash, and they're hardly up. But now this is about 2 months in. So that year I had corn that stood 7 foot tall. The beans were growing right up the corn stalks, did not interrupt the corn, and I had an abundance of acorn squash that year. So I learned a lot from Barkeeter that I must pay attention. So the farms that they had, if you were in Chemung, Chemung was an active town for the Native Americans. They had their village on one side, and the other side of the river, there were huge farm land that were all in little crops like this. You had a circle with the plants growing. They had orchards. They grew watermelon. They were, like I said, they were abundant farmers. Talked about that. The longhouse. Prior to the 1700s, most of the Native Americans that lived in upstate New York were living in longhouses. They were, as I said, about the length of this room, about the width of this room, and they would take saplings and then bring them over, tie them in the center, and make, if you will, the roof rafters. And then they would take bark, and they would make the shingles with bark. Then they would put a hole in the roof. Why do you think? Why do you think they would put a hole in the roof? Yes, yes. They wanted the fire to go out. Now we have a village up at Newtown Battlefield, and I want to attest that that doesn't work that well. But you needed heat in the winter. So you would, as I mentioned before, in the first section you would have your family. Now your family would be your brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins. That's your family. And then your family would be of the same clan, would be in the next section, and it would be all the way through. So as you can see, you probably don't want to stay there a lot. So in the depth of winter, you would stay in the longhouse, and this is what the longhouse looks. This is the longhouse at Ganondagan up in Victor, New York. And in the summer, we would store our belongings up here, and it would basically be like my garage is. We put everything in it. So this is what the outside of the longhouse looks like. down in Pennsylvania, they use the Delaware, the Lenape people typically use the wigwam. Same construction, but it would have been for one family. Again, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins. So in the spring, summer, and fall, even days like today, you're outside. And you make yourself a little shelter and sleep under the stars, keep yourself warm. But in the winter months, you pretty much, like we do, you bundle up and you stay inside. So this is the Haudenosaunee Council House at Newtown Battlefield State Park. There are 3 smaller dwellings, and then this shows the council house. No one would live in the council house. This is from the records of Clinton and Sullivan. They had sketches in their notebooks or their journals, and that is what those would have looked like. So they would have, by now, they had a lot of influence from the settlers, the colonists that are coming in, and they sort of switched it over. It's much easier to build a structure like this than the longhouse. I did have the opportunity to meet an archaeologist of Cornell, and he was saying that when they would dig down and find artifacts, they would find artifacts of 250 years ago. And you go, okay, so we could date stamp them, and then he would dig down a little bit further. And it was like, oh, this is 400 years prior. And if they were lucky, they dug down and found it 800 years. So he asked a question. He says, why do you think there is a village on top of a village? They didn't have any written language. They didn't know, but why? Why did they move? So, oh, we ate all the nutrients out of the ground. You know, we over planted our crops. No. Oh, you killed all the deer and the animals, so they had to move. No. Do anybody here heat with wood? How many cord of wood do you do in 15 years? So why did they move? They're carrying wood a long, long way. So they would uproot, they would go to another area, they would build a village. They'd stay there 15 to 20 years. What happens to that original village after 200 years? You have beautiful trees. They're still by that rambling brook. It's a great place to put a village. They didn't know it, but it was perfect. It was a perfect location before. It's probably a perfect location again. So the northeastern woodland Indian, they did not use like you see in the westerns, birch bark. They had dugout canoes. Now, Chemung is important. You could bring a large boat up to Chemung in the Chemung River, but beyond that, this is all you navigate farther up the river. So the dugout canoe was very important. As I said, we were hunters and fishermen. They did most of their fishing by nets. So I have some artifacts that aren't as nice as what Matt has here. But these are sinkers. So you would tie your nets, you'd throw your nets in, let it alone for a little while, the fish would come back, be over your nets, you'd pick up the nets. So one of the things that they invented was commonly called lacrosse. Now lacrosse was invented by the Native American. It's a very important thing. They felt that it built manhood, and it was a sport, but they didn't play it like we play it today. Their fields were giant meadows, They would play it for many days, and then the winner would be entertained by the loser by a festival. And they would settle disputes, and then they used, they would make their own, this is my wooden stick, they would make their own stick, and it was a brutal sport, and they, like I said, they settled a lot of differences. This is the Shawnee national team, which is out of the Onondaga Nation. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know, the Haudenosaunee are their own sovereign nation. So the Haudenosaunee people have their own passports, they have their own government. Unfortunately, the game of lacrosse is going to be introduced in Los Angeles in 28. The people who invented the sport and played the sport so far are not invited because they want to come as the Haudenosaunee Nationals. Not Canada, not America, their sovereign nation of Haudenosaunee. The IOC doesn't recognize them as a nation because you got to have some bureaucratic. So they're fighting. Keep your fingers crossed. These guys and gals need to represent their sport in the Olympics. So, thank you, Matt. Now we can go into the Revolutionary War. I wasn't sure how I was going to do this without the help here. So, George Washington, Revolutionary War started in 75, 76, right? So now it's late war. It's 78, 79. Washington knows he's going to win. But what has he got? He's got the coastal nations of Boston, Philadelphia, Charleston. He's got all of those nations. People are living there. They're thriving there. And we're against the king because the king is giving us taxation and we want to be independent from the motherland. So George Washington sends a letter to Major General John Sullivan, 31st of May, 1779. This is the letter. This is the letter right over here. The part that I want to call out is his wording. The expedition you are appointed to command is to be directed against the hostile tribes of the 6 nations of Indians with their associates and their adherents. The immediate objective are the total destruction and devastation of their settlements and the capture of as many prisoners of every age and sex as possible. It will be essential to ruin their crops now in the ground and prevent them from planting more. So, I want you to go up the Susquehanna. I want you to come down the Susquehanna. I want you to come from Fort Pitt. And I want you to do a 3-pronged attack. And I want you to wipe out the Native American, the savages that are living up there. Why? They were helping the king. They were supporting the king. So, how did that go? So, there was a village called Tioga. They burned the village to the ground, and they built Fort Sullivan. And there is a model up on the 2nd floor that some 4th graders did a few years ago, and shows Fort Sullivan. Colonel Broadhead was stationed at Fort Pitt. He was to come up and then come over to Fort Sullivan. Brigadier General Clinton was up in Schoharie, and he was coming down the upper Susquehanna. General Sullivan was coming up the Susquehanna. Sullivan got there first. He burned the village. He started building the fort. Clinton came down the river. He dammed up Oswego Lake and then put his bateaus and all of his supplies in those boats. They opened the dam up. They floated down the river, and when they could, they would destroy Indian villages all the way down through to Fort Sullivan. Oh, I didn't tell you how successful Brodhead was. He got lost. He never made it to Athens or Fort Sullivan. He got lost. He did burn quite a few villages, but he was pretty much a non-player in the Sullivan-Clinton campaign. So, who were the participants in this campaign? The Colonial Army was under the command of Sullivan and Clinton and Brodhead, but Brodhead didn't have any effect. Who was here in our land that we live today? The 8th Regiment of Foot. They were the soldiers from the king. They were on assignment. They got the short straw and had to come over to the new country and protect the king's assets. Butler's Rangers, they were loyalists. They were like the farmers that were living in these valleys. The king's not bothering me. I'm not worried about the taxation. I've got a good life for myself. I'll stand up with the king. And then you had Joseph Brant, who was a Seneca, and he had about 1,000 warriors. Butler had about 750. 8th Regiment of Foot had less than 20 at the village of Newtown. So on August 29th, 1779, was the first and last conflict that the natives stood up against the colonial army. Up to this point, there were raids and there were massacres, and on both sides, going back and forth. But this was the first confrontation that they had. The Butler's Rangers and the natives had built a small breastworks right off the river, protecting Newtown, which was back over here. So early in the morning, they came on. The breastworks were built to protect people laying behind and protect them from being visible. However, the army, the colonial army, which were about 6,000 men, they were surveyors, they were artillery, there were infantry, there were all the support for the army. 6,000 people coming through are kind of noisy, so they knew where they were, but they didn't make it up the river as on the Indian Path as fast as they expected. So some of the foliage from the breastworks had died out, so you could see movement behind. They saw the movement. They set up their artillery. They started barraging the natives and butlers with the artillery. Then they made an attack. The Native Americans and butlers basically retreated up to what is now Newtown Battlefield. They retreated up over that hill, and that was no easy feat, climbing up that hill. The battle lasted about 13 hours. There was not a lot of casualties on either side. But the next day really laid the groundwork for their army, and that was carrying out their mission that Washington wanted them to do. They burned the village of Newtown to the ground. They scorched the earth. They displaced them. They ruined all their seeds. 1779 was the worst winter on recorded history. Then the next day they went to what is now Elmira, right by where Kennedy Valve is. They burned that village. They went to Big Flats, the village of Renova. They burned that village. And they went in some of the little creeks and burned the villages, went up to Montour Falls, Watkins Glen, continued on up to Fort Niagara. That was where they were trying to push the natives to Fort Niagara, because they knew that Fort Niagara couldn't support all of those families because they were overcrowded as it was. They didn't have enough supplies. They figured they'd push all of that back onto the Brits. Now, what's interesting is I found a letter from Washington to Clinton, and see the date, the 15th of September. So this is just a short time after the Battle of Newtown. Now, the letter that preceded this was from Sullivan. He sent the letter to Washington saying, hey, I had a battle, I won, I burned the village, just as you said, I really need help. I really need some more provisions. My army, is running out of supplies. So, Washington got that letter. Then he wrote back here, the advantages that we have already gained over the Indians in the destruction of their settlements is very flattering to the expedition. In other words, good job. But to make it as conclusive as the state of your provisions and safety of any will consequence, I would mention 2 points which I sufficiently expressed in my general instructions. That was the first letter that went out. Or if I have, I want to repeat it. So in other words, I told you once, you're calling back for more support. What I'm going to say is, the one is the necessity of pushing the Indians to the greatest practical distance from their settlements and frontiers, to throwing them wholly on the British enemy. The other is making the destruction of their settlements so final and complete to put all of their power and derive the smallest successor of them should they try to return. So once again, Washington's saying, hear me. I want you to do the total destruction. Sullivan didn't quite make it to Niagara. He went up and it got late in the fall. He turned around and started coming back, burning villages on the way back. He writes to Washington that this is a great success. I've only lost 40 men, and his force had burned 40 large Indian towns or villages. How big are these towns? Some of them are as many as 1,500 to 2,000 people. Totally destroyed. And destroyed 160,000 bushels of corn. I can't even fathom how much that is. And then in the journals of the military expedition, 14 towns were destroyed previous to the 1st of September. And it tells Sullivan he devastated 7, including Newtown, Old and New Chemung. Clinton destroyed 7 in the Binghamton, Oswego area. And the main Continental Army destroyed the site of Elmira and Middleton and Renova, and then continued on up the lakes. So that was 1779. Now I mentioned that there were surveyors in Clinton and Sullivan's army. Now, this is a map that was shared with me about 2 months ago, and it was given to the park up at Newtown by one of the farms that is local up there, that they were given this map. 1788, so we're 9 years after the Battle of Newtown. 9 years. If you look at the map, right here is the town of Chemung, Thomas Wheeling, Avia Buck, and so on. These are all commanders or soldiers that fought with Clinton and Sullivan. They were deeded land that 9 years earlier was the village of Chemung. So, I don't want to leave on that note. So, what I would like to do, if I do have time, I would like to tell a story. And this story is one that Barkeeter told me many, many years ago. And he was told that by a Seneca lady that lived south of Williamsport. And it is a story of a giant bear. This bear stood 7 feet tall. His paws, the claws on his paws were so big, they're bigger than my fingers. And this bear had not eaten in 3 days. Nothing for 3 days. So you can imagine how hungry that poor animal was. So he was going through the forest and making as much noise as a giant bear would going through the high timbers. As he's looking on the ground, he sees some hickory nuts and some walnuts, but I don't eat those. He walks out of those woods and comes out into a meadow. He goes over and there's blueberries. Oh, he loves blueberries. I think they would have called them huckleberries. But he goes over and he picks a few of them. But there's not enough to satisfy him. The birds have really done a good job of picking most of them. So then he goes over in the side of the meadow and he sees wild strawberries. You know the wild strawberries, the little ones that are so sweet. So he picks a few of those, but again, it didn't satisfy him. He goes down to the river, and he looks down into the water, and he sees his reflection, and he takes that giant paw and he breaks the water, breaks the reflection, but there's nothing in there. So he slowly gets into the river and he swims to the other side. He gets out and he shakes himself off and he looks up into the distance and he sees a giant tree with red dots. Oh, an apple tree. I love apples. So he ran as fast as he could up to that tree. And on the ground, there's the apples laying on the ground. They've been sitting there for some time because the bees are buzzing all over. The tree is loaded with apples. He starts eating them as fast as he can. Gets himself full, and he sits down to the trunk of that tree, and he falls asleep. Just like we do after Thanksgiving. We tell our wives we're watching football, but really, it's really hard to our eyelids. So he sleeps, and he sleeps for a long time. And with a start, he wakes up. It's dark out. Oh no, what has happened? Where is the sun? When I fell asleep, the sun was high in the sky. And he looks up and he sees the heavens and he says, oh, it's nighttime. I fell asleep all the way to night. So he looks up, sees Mother Moon, sees the Big Dipper. There's a mistake. Mother Moon put too many stars in the Big Dipper. So he counts them again. Sure enough. I mean, you all know what the Big Dipper is. You know how many stars are in it. Well, this night, Mother Moon made a mistake and she put too many stars in that Big Dipper. So, what would any respectable bear do? He yells up to Mother Moon. Mother Moon, you've made a mistake. You put too many stars in the Big Dipper. Well, Mother Moon, she did absolutely nothing. She just threw out more stars into the Milky Way and the other constellations. Well, that upset that bear. So now he stands up on his back legs and he says, Mother Moon, you put too many stars in the Big Dipper. You got to correct that. And with that, Mother Moon grabbed that star and threw it down right at the feet of that bear. Oh, what am I going to do? It is shining all over this tree and this meadow. Yeah, I won't be able to sleep. The animals won't be able to sleep. Oh, what am I going to do? He looks around. Oh, he picks up a giant stone and he carries it over to that star and he very carefully sets it down on that star. But the star is so bright, it just shines out from underneath. Picks up that rock and in disgust he throws it down and it crashes to the ground. He looks around. Oh, there's a stump over there that's hollowed out. It's rotted out. So he picks up the star and he goes over and he jams it down into that stump, covers it with leaves and sticks, steps back. Oh, the star is so bright. It's shining out from underneath, out of the root structure. Oh, so he uncovers it, sets it back on the ground. He's walking around wondering what he's going to do. And then he looks up into that apple tree, and way at the top, he sees a special apple. So he climbs way up to that, and he picks that apple out of the tree, climbs back down, and he picks up the star, looks at the apple, looks at the star, and he smashes that star right into the apple. Now, legend has it that that star is still in the apple. Do you think it is? Well, let's see. Well, it's still there. It is there. There's a star in the apple. So, if somebody asks you where or who put the star in the apple, what are you going to say? The bear. Yes. So I thank you very much. Sorry about the technical difficulty. Matt, thank you for fixing it. But if you have any questions, I'd be honored to try to answer them. I did not follow totally. You didn't learn a lot about Bradford County, but remember, in the 1700s, Bradford County was controlled by the Haudenosaunee people. They were given the protection of the Lenape and the Susquehannocks. They were what they called little brothers, and they gave them the protection, and so that's why I didn't. I know that the gentlemen and ladies here have a rich library of things that were prior to the 1700s. But I hope that I gave you a little bit of insight into the Native American of the 1700s. Thank you. So I have some artifacts up here which are nowhere compared to what the Historical Society has. There's some instruments and there's some other items here if you want to come up and take a look and ask, and I'll try to answer any questions you may have. Yes, sir.
Did Caplanite get this far east in the trading network? The pipestone, red pipestone?
I think probably some of his influence got this far because they had to come this way to get to the ships going over. But there was a lot of, as I understand it, there's a lot of trading and then bartering that goes on to move the skins to where they had to go. Yes?
How did a woman become the mother of the clan?
The clan mother, it was more of a, as the woman would age or progress and the clan mother is getting older, it was kind of like the clan mother would have picked her successor, if you will, but it would have been mainly a senior person of the tribe that has seen a lot and they would trust. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Right.
They didn't know about it until they brought
Right. And that white corn, the village of up in Victor, they have some of the old seed and they have hybrided that, so that is for sale now. It's a white corn, and it, by testing it, they have the corn that they have. Right. Yeah, so if you get a chance to go to Ganondagan, you can see they have that for sale, as a matter of fact. They have what's that? Oh, did you? Was it fruitful?
And I did, no, I did the same thing you did.
Didn't listen, did you? Okay. Okay. Buffalo Woman's Garden. Okay, I'll have to look that up. What's that? Was not as we have music today. It was more of a chant, and that really was good for all the people. When you would come to my village, and we would sing. I mean, we would. You just blend right in. Yes. Well, thank you. We'll talk soon. Well, thanks. Oh, thank you. Sure. Thank you. Take care of that knee. I can only hold this so long. Take care.